Hi, I'm Dan. Thanks for tuning in to see what's going on behind the scenes at DimGuard. For me personally, the thing that is taking up my most of my attention, um, and is doing it in a good way, is building out the distribution site. I've learned all sorts of good things about how to tie in uh, PayPal buttons. Because one of the things that we're going to do with the website is we're going to allow the uh, DimGuard community to vote on what content lines we pursue most vigorously. We're always going to be meeting the adventuring needs, but with regards to supplements, right? We have many different avenues we've gone down with creature templates and creatures CR 0 to 20 versus player classes CR 0 to 20, and the expanded magic item descriptions that include elements from the creature sacrifice to create them. We're now going to be moving into NPC collections. We had the encounter galleries, and we have now ongoing adventuring days. We're eventually going to get at least some representative samples of all of those lines up on the website. The website is at danhass.biz. And then based upon the voting and the way that the community will vote is with their money, with their donations through PayPal, that will determine the direction of development. So we may go back and create new encounter galleries, or focus on templates, or whatever the direction happens to be. We're even going to put in some additional one-off adventures that have never been published anywhere else. And if that's what people want, we have the resources now to pursue those. I've got to say that I'm really happy with the administration of the actual content now. The reason I hadn't there were a couple of reasons I hadn't gotten into this either. First of all, the previous vehicle, DriveThruRPG, served our distribution needs. There were some things we wanted to do. So, for example, we want to be able to produce previews, and attach those to things like Kickstarters or Patreon. And that was not a possibility and do that before the titles are actually released. You could produce previews in DriveThru, but only of titles you actually had available. So if you're like, hey, I'm going to be released this in volume 25, here's a preview of it. You would have had to have generated a preview document as a separate document, manage that document, and make that live. And then when you were ready for the actual title, there was no way to go out there and take that preview document. I say there's no way. There's probably a way. I just didn't. The overhead was just prohibitive, considering the volume of material that DimGuard is producing. Anyway, so by reclaiming control of our content, we can do that now, and it's going to take a few more weeks to get everything out there we want to get out there. But we're pretty happy with that. Well, I say we. This is kind of my exclusive bailiwick at the moment, and there's not really anybody else on the team that's addressing it except for me. The reason I can do this is that the actual development of the content has gotten so efficient now that I've been able to hand off elements of it to other playtesters and editors and whatnot. That's significantly freed up me to do the content management. So that's what's going on. we are producing the next series, the Warlock series. It's turning out to be a little convoluted. We're going to have to work on that. We did the first playtest of the first couple of modules, and it's like herding cats. There's so, I mean, that's always the case, but it is such a non-linear story. It is so it is so ripe with opportunities for PCs to really go their own direction, and that's not a bad thing. It's hard to spin that as a bad thing, but it is impossible to say, okay, I want to set up this 12th level situation. If you can't get all parties kind of headed in that direction, right? So you can make that 12th level encounter or the 20th level encounter, whatever it is you're heading towards. You can make it pretty broad, but there at some point there has to be some constraint. It's like in order to get here, the PCs have to have had a reason, have to have followed reasonably a course that could lead them there, right? And we've been really good about that, right? In past adventures, explaining why a broad range of PCs would want to overthrow the Drow or see Arethysia eliminated, or well, just any number of things. Prevent Synth Grimsbane from becoming the Archon of Death, right? So, but it. Right, so what we have with the Warlocks is we have very divergent elements, and Warlock patrons are very they don't align well together, right? The motivations and the goals of the Warlock patrons are each one distinct and unique, and so saying to a group of PCs, this is going to be a Warlock campaign, and so half your PCs are like, oh great, I'm going to play a Warlock, and then half of your PCs, and that, let's just say we're talking about a group of 6, like a number, 3 of your PCs have vastly divergent goals that are imposed by their patrons, and you're saying, okay, I need to get those to the same point at 12th level. That's just a really hard challenge. We may have to revisit the entire idea of the Warlock campaign. It may be something that has to be put on hold. That's the way. There are a couple of the encounters with Gold was that way for a long time because we had so many different draconic influences in Dimgard that each had their own agendas, and congealing those into a coherent plot line that would be significant enough to draw in all the various possibilities took us a couple of years to get to that point. Encounters with Gold was I originally conceived that, like I said, about almost 2 years ago. So hopefully, but here's the thing too, right? So we have a schedule we want to have the first 4 episodes of that series out in March. That means, we need to get the first 4 episodes through play testing to a state where we think, okay, we're going to be able to do this by like the end of January at the latest, right? So we can get it into editing and get it ready out the door in March. And so if by, the first week of January, you're looking at that and saying, "Oh man, I don't know if I'm going to make that. That is highly questionable. I need to move to something that may not be as complex and interesting, but something that I can get done now in the 3 weeks left of January. Something a little more straightforward." And we do have a few of those ideas floating around. Most of them came out of the Patreon. The Patreon was initially conceived as just a bunch of dungeon crawls, and as players want to do, many of those dungeon crawls evolved into pretty significant role-playing things, and have yielded a. It's been a very fertile territory for ideas. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. That can, yeah, we could really do a lot with death cults, right? There's enough material out there and enough emerging material that we could attack that and do a 21 episode series on that. So we're not looking at switching yet, but if we can't get the Warlock stabilized pretty quick, we're going to have to. So that's been consuming quite a bit of resources. And then, of course, the Patreon comes out next week, so we're getting those finalized. And then on the week after that, we'll be distributing Volume 24. The Kickstarter closes next week. But, yeah, I just can't tell you that the hiatus or the period of reflection that we took, where we revised our whole process, man, that's just made that used to be at this point in both of those cycles, in the Patreon cycle and the Kickstarter cycle, I was like, oh my God, I'm scrambling to get to see what needs to get done in these final hours, final days. Make sure everything's ready to go. And sometimes I would overlook something, but yeah, it's just so much easier on me. So that's what I'm doing. As always, I want to thank all the backers of the volumes posted to Kickstarter and all of the patrons on Patreon. We're not doing this for ourselves, right? We wouldn't go to all the effort we do to produce a finished product and get it out there to the world if it wasn't for the encouragement that participation shows. Maybe some of you can run into me in Winter Fantasy in February and we can say hi, and that would be great.